Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
And now we begin Chapter 1, Teachings to Rupa Goswami.
Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Srila Rupa Goswami, the younger brother of Sanatan Goswami, went to Prayag, the modern city of Allahabad, with his younger brother Vallabha. When the two brothers heard that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying there, they both became very happy and went to see the Lord. At that time, the Lord was on his way to visit the temple Bindu Madhava. On the way to the temple, the Lord was chanting and dancing, and thousands of people were following him. Some of these people were crying, and some were laughing. Some were dancing, and some were singing, and some were falling on the ground, offering obeisances to the Lord. In all cases, all of them were roaring the holy name of Krishna. It is said that in spite of being at the confluence of the rivers Ganges and Yamuna, Prayag was never flooded until the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at which time the city was overflooded by love of Krishna. The two brothers, Rupa Goswami and Vallabha, stayed aloof in an uncrowded place and witnessed the great crowd and wonderful scene. When the Lord danced, he raised his arms and shouted, "Hari Bol! Hari Bol!" The people all about him were astonished to see his wonderful activities. After visiting the temple, the Lord accepted prasad, food offered to the deity, at the house of a Deccanist or southern Brahmin. While at the Brahmin's house, the Lord was visited by Rupa Goswami and Vallabha. From a distance, the two brothers fell down on the ground to offer obeisances, and they chanted many Sanskrit verses from the scriptures. When the Lord saw Rupa Goswami offering obeisances before him, he became very pleased and asked him to get up. The Lord then informed Rupa Goswami of the causeless mercy of Krishna upon him, for Krishna had just delivered him from a materialistic way of life based simply on pound, shilling, pence. The Lord accepted the two brothers as his own devotees, and he cited one verse from the scriptures which stated that it is possible for a Brahmin who has studied the 4 Vedas to not be accepted as a devotee of the Lord, and that a pure devotee could come from a very low family and yet be accepted by him. Then the Lord embraced the two brothers, and out of his causeless mercy touched their heads with his lotus feet. Being blessed in this way, the brothers offered prayers to the Lord in their own words. The prayers indicated that Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself, that he had assumed the form and fair complexion of Chaitanya, and was thus known as Gauranga, the Golden One, and that he was the most munificent incarnation of Krishna because he was distributing love of Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami also quoted one verse which was later found in the book Govinda Lilamrita from chapter 1, verse 2. Yo gyana matam bhuvanam dayalur ulagayan api akarot pramatam svaprema sampad sudaya bhuteham Sri Krishna Chaitanyam amum prapadye, which means, quote, "Let me surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the most merciful personality of Godhead. He delivers those souls who are merged in ignorance and offers them the highest gift, love of Krishna, and thus makes them mad for Krishna consciousness." Unquote. After this incident, Vallabha Bhatta invited the Lord to go to the other side of the Ganges, and the Lord went. From that moment on, wherever the Lord went, Rupa Goswami would follow him and stay with him. Because the Lord felt inconvenienced in crowded places, he asked Rupa Goswami to accompany him to a place on the banks of the Ganges known as Dashavameda Ghat. For 10 days he instructed Rupa Goswami about the truth of Krishna, the principles of devotional service, and the transcendental relationships with Krishna. All of this was described in full detail, so that in the future Rupa Goswami could distribute this science of Krishna in his book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Indeed, Srila Rupa Goswami described this incident in the first verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in which he speaks of the causeless mercy of the Lord upon him. The Supreme Lord is cognizant and all-powerful, and by His causeless mercy, He empowers a living entity to receive His mercy. Being under the spell of conditional life, people in general are averse to rendering devotional service and practicing Krishna consciousness. In fact, most people are unaware of the principal teachings of Krishna consciousness regarding one's eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the ultimate goal of life, which is to return home back to Godhead. Nor are people aware of the process by which one can return to the spiritual world. Because these important subject matters are unknown to the conditioned soul, Lord Chaitanya, out of His causeless mercy, instructed Rupa Goswami in the principles of devotional service. Later, for the good of the people in general, Rupa Goswami distributed this information of the science of devotional service. In the prologue to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Part 1, Chapter 1, Verse 2, Rupa Goswami wrote the following: Riddhi yasya preranaya pravartito ham varaka rupo pi tasya hare pada kamalam vande chaitanya devasya, which means, quote, "I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Lord Chaitanya Deva, because due to his inspiration, I feel the desire within my heart to write something about devotional service. For this reason, I am engaged in writing this book on the science of devotion known as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu." Unquote. When Lord Chaitanya began his instructions to Rupa Goswami, he first told him, quote, "My dear Rupa, the science of devotional service is just like the great ocean, and it is not possible to show you all its length and breadth. However, I shall try to explain the nature of that ocean by taking just one drop out of it. In this way you can taste it and understand what that ocean of devotional service actually is." Unquote. The Lord then explained that within this Brahmanda or universe, there are innumerable living entities who, according to their own fruitive activities, are transmigrating from one species of life to another, and from one planet to another. In this way, their engagement in material existence has been continuing since time immemorial. In actuality, these living entities are atomic parts and parcels of the Supreme Spirit. It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the length and breadth of the individual soul is approximately 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair. In other words, it is so small that it is invisible. This is also confirmed in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, one of the 4 Kumaras, known as Sanandan, gave the following speech upon performing a great sacrifice. Quote, "O Supreme Truth, if the living entities were not infinitesimal sparks of the Supreme Spirit, each minute spark would be all-pervading and would not be controlled by a superior power. But if the living entity is accepted as a minute part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, he automatically becomes controlled by a supreme energy or power. The latter is his actual constitutional position, and if he remains in this position, he can attain full freedom." Unquote. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 87, Verse 30. If one mistakenly considers his position to be equal to that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes contaminated by the doctrine of non-duality, and his efforts in transcendental life are rendered ineffective. Lord Chaitanya elaborated on these teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam by pointing out that there are 2 kinds of living entities, the eternally liberated and the eternally conditioned. The eternally conditioned living entities can be divided into 2 types, moving and non-moving. Those entities which cannot move, like trees for example, remain in one place and are classified as non-moving entities. And those that move, such as the birds and beasts, are called Jangama, or moving entities, and are further divided into 3 categories: those that fly in the sky, those that swim in the water, and those that walk on land. Out of the many millions and trillions of living entities on land, human beings comprise only a small portion. Out of that small number of human beings, most are totally ignorant of spiritual life, are unclean in their habits, and have no faith in the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In short, most human beings live like animals. These can actually be deducted from the number of human beings that comprise human or civilized life. It is very difficult to find a few human beings who believe in the Scriptures and the existence of God, or for that matter, in proper behavior. Those who do believe in the value of these things are known as Arya, a word denoting those who believe in advancing in spiritual life. Out of those who believe in the value of the Scriptures and the advancement of human civilization, there are 2 classes, the righteous and the unrighteous. Those who are righteous generally execute fruitive activities in order to derive some good result for sense gratification. Out of many such persons who engage in righteous activities for sense gratification, only a few come to know about the absolute truth. These are called jnanis, empiric philosophers. Out of many hundreds and thousands of such empiric philosophers, only a handful actually attain liberation. When one is liberated, he theoretically understands that the living entity is not composed of material elements, but is spirit-soul, distinct from matter. Simply by theoretically understanding this doctrine, one can be called liberated. But actually a mukta, or liberated soul, is he who understands his constitutional position as an eternal servant of the Lord. Such liberated souls engage with faith and devotion in the service of the Lord, and they are called Krishna Bhaktas, or Krishna-conscious persons. Krishna Bhaktas are free from all material desires. Those who are liberated theoretically by knowing simply that the living entity is not material may still have desires, although they may be technically classified amongst liberated souls. Their main desire is to become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, such persons are very much attached to Vedic rituals and righteous activities, performing them in order to enjoy material prosperity. Even when some of them transcend material enjoyment, they still try to enjoy the spiritual world by merging into the existence of the Supreme Lord. Some of them are also desirous of attaining mystic powers through the execution of yoga. As long as these desires are within one's heart, he cannot understand the nature of pure devotional service. When one is constantly being agitated by such desires, he is not peaceful. Indeed, as long as there is any desire for material perfection at all, one cannot be at peace. Since the devotees of Lord Krishna do not desire anything material, they are the only peaceful persons within this material world. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Muktanam api siddhanam Narayana Parayana Sudurlabha Prashantatma Kotishvapi Mahamune, which means, quote, O great sage, out of many millions of liberated persons and persons who have achieved success in mystic yoga, one who is completely devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who is filled with peace is very hard to find, unquote. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 14, Verse 5. In this way, Lord Chaitanya explained that of the many thousands and millions of living entities wandering in the material world, one who, by the grace of Lord Krishna and the spiritual master, gets the seed of devotional service is very rare and fortunate. A pious or religious man is generally inclined to worship deities in various temples, but if by chance, even without his knowledge, he offers his obeisances to Lord Vishnu or receives the favor of a Vaishnav, a devotee of the Lord, he at that time acquires the asset necessary to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is clearly understood from the life story of the great sage Narad, which is related in Srimad Bhagavatam. By serving Vaishnavas in his previous life, Narad was favored by the devotees of the Lord and became a great sage. Indeed, amongst sages, Narad Muni is considered to be the greatest. Vaishnavas or devotees are usually very compassionate upon conditioned souls. Without even being invited, a devotee will go from door to door to enlighten people and to bring them out of the darkness of nescience by injecting knowledge of the living entity's constitutional position as a servant of Lord Krishna. Such devotees are empowered by the Lord to distribute devotional consciousness or Krishna consciousness to the people in general. They are known as authorized spiritual masters, and it is by their mercy that a conditioned soul gets the seed of devotional service. The causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is first appreciated when one comes in touch with the bona fide spiritual master who can bring the conditioned soul to the highest position of devotional life. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya said that by the mercy of the spiritual master, one can achieve the causeless mercy of the Lord, and by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can attain the mercy of the bona fide spiritual master. Thus, by the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna, one receives the seed of devotional service. He has only to sow the seed in the field of his heart, just as a gardener sows the seed of a valuable tree. After sowing this seed, one has to water it in the form of chanting and hearing the holy name of the Supreme Lord, or by taking part in discussions about the science of devotional service in a society of pure devotees. When the plant of devotional service sprouts up from the seed of devotion, it begins to grow freely. When it is full grown, it surpasses the length and breadth of this universe and enters into the transcendental atmosphere, where everything is bathed in the effulgence of the Brahma-Jyoti. The plant even penetrates this Brahma-Jyoti and gradually enters the planet known as Goloka Vrindavan. There, the plant takes shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the ultimate goal of devotional service. After attaining this position, the plant produces fruit, which is known as the fruit of love of Godhead. However, it is necessary for the devotee or transcendental gardener to pour water on the plant daily by chanting and hearing. Unless one waters the plant by chanting and hearing, there is every chance that it will dry up. Lord Chaitanya pointed out to Rupa Goswami that there was a certain danger to be encountered while watering the root of the devotional plant. After the plant has grown some bit, an animal may come and either eat or destroy it. When green leaves of a plant are taken by some animal, the plant generally dies. The most dangerous animal is considered a mad elephant, for if a mad elephant enters into a garden, it causes tremendous damage to plants and trees. An offense to a pure devotee of the Lord is called Vaishnava Parad, the mad elephant offense. In the discharge of devotional service, an offense to the feet of a pure devotee can create havoc. Thus, one has to defend the plant of bhakti by tending it properly and taking care not to commit offenses. If one is cautious, the plant can properly thrive. There are 10 principal offenses which can be committed against the holy name. The first is to blaspheme the great devotees who have tried to spread the glories of the holy name throughout the world. The holy name of Krishna is non-different from Krishna, and one who attempts to spread the holy names throughout the world is beloved of him. Krishna himself does not tolerate offenses against his pure devotees. The second offense is to deny that Lord Vishnu is the absolute truth. There is no difference between his name, quality, form, pastimes, and activities, and one who sees a difference is considered an offender. The Lord is supreme, and no one is equal to or greater than him. Consequently, if one thinks that the Lord's names are non-different from the names of demigods, he offends. The Supreme Lord and the demigods should never be considered on the same level. The third offense is to consider the bona fide spiritual master to be a common man. The fourth offense is to blaspheme Vedic literature and authorized scriptures like the Puranas. The fifth offense is to consider the glories attributed to the holy name to be exaggerations. The sixth offense is to concoct perverted theories about the holy name. The seventh offense is to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. It is understood that by chanting the holy names, one is free from sinful reactions, but this does not mean that one should act sinfully on the strength of chanting. That is the greatest offense. The eighth offense is to consider that religious rituals, austerity, sacrifices, or other forms of renunciation are equal to chanting the holy name. Chanting the holy name is as good as associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pious activities are only means to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they can even be performed for some material reason. The ninth offense is to preach the glories of the holy name of God to a faithless person who is not interested in hearing them. The 10th and last offense is to maintain material attachment even after hearing and chanting the holy names of God. The idea is that by chanting the holy name without offense, one can obtain elevation to the liberated platform. On the liberated platform, one is freed from all material attachment. Thus, if one chants the holy names and still has material attachments, he must be committing some offense. There are also other factors which disturb the plant of devotional service. Along with this plant, the weeds of material desires also grow. When a person advances in bhakti, it is natural that many persons will come to him requesting to become disciples and will offer him some material gains. If one is attracted by a large number of disciples and material conveniences offered by these disciples, and forgets his duty as a bona fide master, the growth of the plant will be impeded. Simply by taking advantage of material conveniences, one may become addicted to enjoying material comforts. It is also considered to be disadvantageous to desire liberation. The only desire should be the desire to render service. Neglect of restrictions and prohibitions is also disadvantageous. The prohibitions are mentioned in the authorized scriptures. One should not indulge in illicit sex life, intoxication, meat eating, or gambling. These things are forbidden to one who is attempting devotional service. If one does not follow these principles strictly, there may be a severe disturbance in the discharge of devotional service. If one is not particularly careful, even by watering the plant of devotional service, unnecessary weeds will grow and hamper progress. The idea is that when one waters a garden, not only does the desired plant grow more rapidly, but the unwanted plants grow also. If the gardener does not see these impediments and take them out, they will overcome and choke the plant of devotion. If, however, one is careful to guard against the growth of unwanted plants, the plant of devotion grows luxuriantly and reaches the ultimate goal, Goloka Vrindavan. When the living entity engaged in devotional service relishes the fruit of love of Godhead, he forgets all religious ritual and improvements in his economic condition. He no longer desires to satisfy his senses, and he no longer desires to become one with the Supreme Lord by merging into his effulgence. There are many phases of spiritual knowledge and transcendental bliss. On one platform are the ritualistic sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, the execution of austerities and pious duties, and the practice of mystic yoga. These all reward different results to their performer. The rewards of these practices, however, appear to be very glittering, as long as one is not elevated to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Love of God is dormant in everyone, and it can be awakened from its dormant position by the execution of pure devotional service, just as a person bitten by a serpent can be awakened by ammonia. After speaking in this way about devotional service, Lord Chaitanya begins to describe devotional service and its symptoms to Rupa Goswami. He explains that in pure devotional service, there can be no desire other than the desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, there is no scope for worshipping any demigod or any other form of Krishna, nor is there room for indulgence in speculative empiric philosophy, nor indulgence in fruitive activities. One should be free from all these contaminations. A devotee should accept only those things that are favorable to keep his body and soul together, and should reject those things that increase the demands of the body. Only the bare necessities for bodily maintenance should be accepted. By minimizing bodily necessities, one can primarily devote his time to the cultivation of Krishna consciousness through the chanting of the holy names of God. Pure devotional service means engaging all the senses of the body in the service of the Lord. At the present moment, our senses are all designated because the body is designated. Consequently, we think that this body belongs to a particular society or a particular country or a particular family. In this way, the body is bound by so many designations. Similarly, the senses belong to the body, and when the body is subject to such designations, the senses are also. Thus, the senses engage themselves on behalf of family, society, nation, and so on. When they are so engaged, they cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. The senses must be purified, and this is possible when one purely understands that he belongs to Krishna and that his life belongs to Krishna. The devotee should see his identity as an eternal servant of Krishna. In this way, one can engage his senses in the service of the Lord. Such engagement is called pure devotional service. A pure devotee accepts the transcendental loving service of the Lord, but rejects all kinds of liberation for his personal sense gratification. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 29, verse 11 through 13, Lord Kapila explains that as soon as a pure devotee hears the glories and transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart, his mind immediately flows toward the Lord, just as the waters of the Ganges flow toward the sea. Such spontaneous attraction to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is most important to pure devotional service. Devotional service is pure when one engages in the service of the Supreme Lord without any motive and without being hampered with material impediments. The pure devotee does not desire to live on the same planet with the Supreme Lord, nor does he desire the same opulence as the Lord, nor does he desire to have the same form as the Lord, nor to live with him side by side, nor to merge into his existence, etc. Even if the devotee were offered such rewards by the Lord, he would reject them. The point is that a devotee is so much absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord that he has no time to think of any benefit beyond his immediate engagement. Just as an ordinary materialistic businessman thinks of nothing else when he is absorbed in his business, a pure devotee, when engaged in the service of the Lord, does not think of anything beyond that engagement. If one is so absorbed in the rendering of service, he can be understood to be elevated to the highest position of bhakti. By such transcendental loving service alone can one surpass the influence of Maya and relish pure love of Godhead. As long as one desires material benefit or liberation, which are called the two witches of allurement, he cannot relish the taste of transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord. There are 3 stages of devotional service. The first is the beginning stage of cultivation. The second is the realization of service. And the third, the supreme stage, is the attainment of love of Godhead. There are 9 different methods of cultivating devotional service, such as hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. And all these processes are employed in the first stage. If one is engaged in chanting and hearing with devotion and faith, his material misgivings gradually become vanquished. As his faith in devotional service gradually increases, he becomes assured of a higher perfectional position. In this way, one can become firmly fixed in devotion, increase his taste for it, become attached, and feel ecstasy. This ecstasy occurs in the preliminary stage of love of Godhead. Attainment of ecstasy is produced by execution of devotional service. When one continues the process of hearing and chanting, attachment grows and assumes the name of love of Godhead. When one attains the third stage of transcendental love of God, there occur further developments known as transcendental affection, emotion, ecstasy, and extreme and intense attachment. These are technically known by the terms raga, anuraga, bhava, and mahabhava. The progress from one stage to another can be compared to the thickening of sugar candy juice. In the first stage, sugar candy juice is like a thin liquid. When, by evaporation, it becomes thicker and thicker, it turns into molasses. Finally, it turns into granules and becomes sugar, rock candy, and so on. Just as liquid sugar juice progresses from one stage to another, similarly, transcendental love for the Supreme Lord develops by stages. When one actually becomes situated on the transcendental platform, he becomes steady. Unless one is so situated, his position may not be steady and he may fall down. When one is actually situated transcendentally, there is no fear of falling down. This stage of understanding is technically called Sthayi Bhava. There are even stages beyond this position, and they are known as Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika, and Vyabhachari. After one attains these, there is actually an exchange of rasa, or transcendental activity, with the Supreme Lord. This exchange in loving reciprocation between the lover and the beloved is generally called Krishna Bhakti Rasa. It should be noted that the transcendental loving exchanges stand on the steadfast position of Sthayi Bhava, as explained before. The basic principle of Vibhava is Sthayi Bhava, and all other activities are auxiliary for the development of transcendental love. The ecstasy of transcendental love has 2 components: the context and the cause of the excitement. The context is also divided into 2 parts: the subject and the object. The exchange of devotional service is the subject, and Krishna is the object. The transcendental qualities are the causes of excitement. This means that the transcendental qualities of Krishna excite the devotee to serve him. The impersonal or Mayavadi philosophers say that the absolute truth has no specific qualities, but the Vaishnava philosophers say that the absolute truth is described as nirguna, without qualities, because he has no material qualities. This is not to say that he does not have spiritual qualities. Indeed, the Lord's spiritual qualities are so great and so enchanting that they can even attract a liberated person. This is explained in the Atmaram verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is said that those who are already situated on the platform of self-realization are attracted by the transcendental qualities of Krishna. This means that Krishna's qualities are not material, but pure and transcendental. The higher stage of ecstasy can be characterized by the following 13 transcendental activities. 1. Dancing. 2. Rolling on the floor. 3. Singing. 4. Clapping. 5. Bristling of the hairs of the body. 6. Thundering. 7. Yawning. 8. Breathing heavily. 9. Forgetting social conventions. 10. Salivating. 11. Laughing. 12. Aching. 13. Coughing. All these symptoms are not awakened simultaneously. They act according to the exchange of transcendental relationships. Sometimes one symptom is prominent, and at another time another is prominent. The transcendental rasas or relationships can be divided into 5. The initial stage is called Shantarati, wherein one who is liberated from material contamination appreciates the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who attains this stage does not exactly engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, for this is a neutral stage. In the second stage, which is called Dasyarati, a person appreciates his position as being everlastingly subordinate to the Supreme Lord, and he understands that he is eternally dependent on the causeless mercy of the Supreme Person. At that time, there is an awakening of natural affection, such as is felt by a son who grows up and begins to appreciate his father's benedictions. At this stage, the living entity wants to serve the Supreme Lord instead of serving Maya, illusion. In the third stage, called Sakyarati, transcendental love is developed, and one associates with the Supreme on an equal level of love and respect. As this stage is further developed, there is joking and such relaxed exchanges as laughing and so on. On this level, there are fraternal exchanges with the Supreme Person, and one is free from all bondage. At this stage, one practically forgets his inferior position as a living entity, but at the same time, he has the greatest respect for the Supreme Person. In the fourth stage, called Vatsalyarati, the fraternal affection evinced in the preceding stage develops into paternal affection. At this time, the living entity tries to be the parent of God. Instead of worshiping the Lord, the living entity, as a parent of the Supreme, becomes an object of worship for the Supreme Person. At this stage, the Lord depends on the mercy of his pure devotee and puts himself under the control of the devotee to be raised. The devotee in this stage attains the position wherein he can embrace the Supreme Lord and even kiss his head. In the fifth stage, called Madhurarati, there is an actual transcendental exchange of conjugal love between the lover and the beloved. It is at this stage that Krishna and the damsels of Vraja glanced at one another, for on this platform there is an exchange of loving glances, motions of the eyes, pleasant words, attractive smiles, etc. Besides these 5 primary rasas or relationships, there are 7 secondary rasas which consist of laughing, having wonderful visions, entering into a chivalrous relationship, experiencing pity, feeling anger, and experiencing ghastliness and devastation. For example, Bhishma related to Krishna as a warrior in the chivalrous rasa. Hiranyakashipu, however, experienced an exchange of the ghastly and devastating rasa. The 5 primary rasas constantly remain within the heart of the pure devotee, and the 7 secondary rasas sometimes appear and disappear to enrich the flavors and tastes of the primary ones. After enriching the primary rasas, they disappear. Examples of Shanta Bhaktas, or devotees in the neutral stage, are the 9 yogis named Kavi, Havi, Antariksha, Prabhuda, Pipalayana, Avirotra, Dravida or Drumala, Chamasa, and Karabhajana. The 4 Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanandan, Sanat Kumara, and Sanatan, are also examples of this stage. Examples of devotees in the 2nd stage, the Dasya stage of servitorship, are Raktaka, Chitraka, and Patraka in the Gokul Ras. These all function as servants of Krishna. In Dwarka there is Daruka, and in the Vaikuntha planets there are Hanuman and others. Devotees in the 3rd stage, the stage of friendship, are Sridama in Vrindavan and Bhima and Arjun in Dwarka and on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. There are many others also. As far as those relating to Krishna in paternal love, they include devotees like Yashoda and Maharaj Nanda, that is, Krishna's mother, father, uncle, and similar relatives. In conjugal love, there are the damsels of Vraja, Vrindavan, and the queens and goddesses of fortune in Dwarka. No one can count the vast number of devotees in this ras. Attachment to Krishna can also be broken down into 2 categories. On one platform, there is attachment with awe and veneration. This type of attachment might be characterized by a certain lack of freedom, and it is exhibited in Mathura and in the Vaikuntha planets. In these abodes of the Lord, the spirit of transcendental loving service is restricted. However, in Gokul, Vrindavan, love is freely exchanged, and although the cowherd boys and damsels of Vrindavan know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they do not show awe and veneration because of the great intimacy of their relationship with Him. In the 5 principal transcendental relationships, awe and veneration are sometimes impediments obscuring the Lord's actual greatness, and sometimes they actually impede one's service to the Lord. When there is friendship, paternal affection, and conjugal love, however, such awe and veneration are reduced. For instance, when Krishna appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, his parents prayed to the Lord with awe and veneration because they understood that the Supreme Lord Krishna or Vishnu had appeared before them as their little child. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 44, verse 51. Although the Supreme Lord was present as their child, Devaki and Vasudeva began to pray to him. Similarly, when Arjuna saw the universal form of the Lord, he was so afraid that he begged pardon for his dealings with Krishna as an intimate friend. As a friend, Arjuna often behaved unceremoniously with the Lord, and upon seeing the awesome universal form, Arjuna said, Sakheti madva prasabham yad uktam, He Krishna, He Yadava, He Sakheti, Ajanata mahiman tavedam, Maya pramadat pranayena vapi, Yachchavahasar tamasat kritosi, Vihara shayasana bhojaneshu, Eko tavapyachyuta tatsamaksham, Tatshamaye tvam mahama pramayam. Which means, quote, I have in the past addressed you as, O Krishna, O Yadava, O my friend, without knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I have dishonored you many times while relaxing or while lying on the same bed or eating together, sometimes alone and sometimes in front of many friends. Please excuse me for all my offenses. Unquote. From the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, verse 41 through 42. Similarly, when Krishna was playing jokes on Rukmini, she feared that Krishna might leave her and became so perturbed that she dropped the fan with which she was fanning him and fainted, falling unconscious on the floor. As far as Yashoda, Krishna's mother in Vrindavan, is concerned, it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 8, verse 45, Traya Chopanishadbhishcha Sankhya Yogeshcha Sattvitai Upagiyamana Mahatmyam Harim Saman Yatatmajam. The personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by all the Vedas and Upanishads, as well as by the Sankhya system of philosophy and all authorized scriptures, was considered to be born in her womb. It is also stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 9, verse 12, that Mother Yashoda bound the child Krishna with a rope, as if he were an ordinary son born of her body. Similarly, there are other descriptions of Krishna's being treated as an ordinary person, as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 18, verse 24. Indeed, when he was defeated in games with his friends, the cowherd boys, Krishna would carry them, notably Sridama, on his shoulders. Regarding the dealings of the gopis with Sri Krishna in Vrindavan, it is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 30, verse 36 through 40, that when Sri Krishna took Srimati Radhika alone from the Ras dance, she thought that Krishna had left all the other gopis. Although they were all equally beautiful, he satisfied her in this way, and she began to think proudly, My dear Lord Krishna has left the beautiful gopis, and he is satisfied with me alone. In the forest, she told Krishna, My dear Krishna, I am unable to move any more. Now, if you like, you can take me wherever you desire. Krishna replied, Come, lean against my shoulder. And as soon as he said this, he disappeared, whereupon Srimati Radhika repined greatly. When Krishna disappeared from the scene of the Ras dance, all the gopis began to repent, saying, "Dear Krishna, we have come here and have left aside our husbands, sons, relatives, brothers, and friends. Neglecting their advice, we have come to you, and you best know the reason for our coming here. You know that we have come because we are captivated by the sweet sound of your flute. But you are so cunning that in the dead of night you have left girls and women like us. This is not very good for you." The word sham means controlling the mind and keeping it from being diverted in various ways by fixing it on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one's mind is fixed on the Supreme Lord, he is known to be situated on the sham platform. On that platform, the devotee understands that Krishna is the basic principle behind everything that is within one's experience. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 19. Such a person can understand that Krishna is present in everything and is distributed all over the cosmic manifestation. Although everything is under the control of the Supreme Lord and is situated in his energy, everything is nonetheless different from Krishna in his personal form. It is also stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that one who understands this, whose intelligence is fixed on Krishna, has attained the platform of Shama. Moreover, the Supreme Personality of Godhead says, Shamo Manishtata Budhe. Unless one is elevated to the platform of Shantarati, he cannot be fixed in knowledge of the greatness of Krishna or of the diffusion of his different energies, which are the cause of all manifestations. This same point is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 19, verse 36. Shamo Manishtata Buddher, Dhamma Indriya Samyama, Titiksha Dukha Samarsho, Jivo Pasta Jayo Driti. Stability of mind can be achieved by one who has concluded that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original source of everything. And when one can control his senses, that is called Shama. When one is ready to tolerate all kinds of sufferings in order to control the senses and keep the mind steady, that is called Titiksha, or tolerance. And when one can control the urges of the tongue and the genitals, that is called Driti. From Driti, one becomes Dhira, pacified. A pacified person is never disturbed by the urges of the tongue and the genitals. If one can fix his mind on Krishna without deviation, he can attain a steadfast position in Krishna consciousness, Shantaras. When one attains Shantaras, unflinching faith in Krishna is established, and all material desires cease. These specific characteristics of Shantaras, unflinching faith in Krishna, and cessation of all desires which are not connected with Krishna, are common to all other rasas as well, just as sound is generally present in all other elements, such as air, fire, water, and earth, because it is produced from the sky. Similarly, these two characteristics of Shantaras are present in other transcendental relationships, such as Dasya, servitorship, Sakya, fraternity, Vatsalya, paternal affection, and the Madhura Ras, conjugal love. When we speak of non-Krishna, or desire which has no connection with Krishna, this does not mean that anything exists without Krishna. Actually, there cannot be anything non-Krishna because everything is a product of the energy of Krishna. Since Krishna and his energies are identical, everything is Krishna indirectly. For example, Consciousness is common to every living entity, but when consciousness is purely centered on Krishna or Krishna consciousness, it is pure, and when consciousness is centered on something other than Krishna, or when it is directed to sense gratification, it may be called non-Krishna consciousness. Thus, it is in the polluted state that the conception of non-Krishna comes. In the pure state, however, there is nothing but Krishna consciousness. Active interest in Krishna, the understanding that Krishna is mine or that I am Krishna's, and that therefore my business is to satisfy the senses of Krishna, is typical of a higher stage than the neutrality of the Shantaras. Simply by understanding the greatness of Krishna, one can achieve the status of Shantaras, in which the worshipable object may be the impersonal Brahman or Paramatma. Worship of the impersonal Brahman and the Paramatma is conducted by those engaged in empiric philosophical speculation and mystic yoga. However, when one develops even further in Krishna consciousness or spiritual understanding, he can appreciate that the Paramatma, the Supersoul, is the eternal worshipable object, and he surrenders unto him. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate, from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 19, which means, quote, after many, many births of worshipping Brahman and Paramatma, when one surrenders unto Vasudeva as the Supreme Master and accepts himself as the eternal servitor of Vasudeva, he becomes a great transcendently realized soul, unquote. At that time, due to his thick and thin relationship with the Supreme Absolute Truth, one begins to render some sort of transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the neutral relationship known as Shantaras is transformed into Dasyaras, servitorship. On the platform of Dasyaras, the greatest quantity of awe and veneration of the Supreme Lord is exhibited. That is, in the Dasyaras, the greatness of the Supreme Lord is appreciated. It should be noted here that on the platform of Shantaras, there is no spiritual activity, but on the platform of Dasyaras, service begins. Thus, in the Dasyaras, the quality of the Shantaras is exhibited, and, in addition, there is consciousness of the transcendental taste of service. Transcendental qualities are certainly present in the Shantaras and Dasyaras, but beyond these there is another quality, confidential attachment, which is pure transcendental love. This loving confidence in the Supreme Personality is technically known as Vishrambha. On the platform of Vishrambha, fraternity, there is no sense of awe or veneration towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, in the transcendental fraternal relationship known as Sakyaras, there are three transcendental characteristics: the sense of greatness, the sense of service, and the sense of intimacy without awe or veneration. Thus, in the Sakyaras, the relationship of fraternity, the transcendental qualities are further increased. Similarly, on the platform of fraternal affection, Vatsalyaras, there are four qualities. In addition to the three qualities already mentioned, there is the sense that the Supreme Lord is dependent on the mercy of the devotee. As a parent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotee sometimes chastises the Lord and considers himself to be the Lord's maintainer. This transcendental sense of being the maintainer of the Supreme Maintainer is very pleasing both to the devotee and to the Supreme Lord. The Lord instructed Srila Rupa Goswami to write the transcendental literature named Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the science of devotional service, and indicate therein the substance of these five transcendental relationships. It is explained in that great literature how the transcendental relationship of Shantaras, taking the shape of unflinching faith in Krishna, is further developed into Dasyaras with the spirit of service, and then to Sakyaras, or undeterred fraternity, and further to the transcendental platform of paternal love, wherein one feels himself to be maintaining the Lord. All these relationships culminate on the highest platform of conjugal love, or Madhura Ras, wherein all these transcendental relationships exist simultaneously.